Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this Friday's Promap webinar. My name is Paul Marshall. I work as an account director at Landmark, and also aligns my colleague Nick Mills, who's the head of our training team. So today's session is to introduce the Promap system, and we'll be showing key tips and tricks, some cost-saving methods, and all the capabilities that are available to you to make your lives easier when you're using Promap for whatever your data requirement is. As well as access to all the layers of Ordnance Survey mapping in both print and digital formats, you can also overlay layers of data such as planning history and flooding extents, and also purchase utility, contamination, flood reports and historical maps to complement your knowledge of your site. All this alongside the award-winning drawing and measuring tools and library of saved map tiles, which makes Promap an effective and efficient tool for you. Once you've got a secure login for Promap, you can access the system via any internet browser. And today we'll show you how you can confidently use the system without racking up cost, how you can produce the maps and access the data you require in the formats and licenses you need, and how you can get ongoing support should you ever require it. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can download samples of all the products that are available in Promap and a companion to assist you when you're using the new website. Also, you'll find the first in our series of Promap profile documents, which are designed to give you all the details you need about using the system while you're using it. And there's 6 of these to collect in total, and you can pick them up across all of our webinar sessions. If you do have any questions as we're going through the demonstration, please use the question facility on the same side of that screen, and myself and Nick will be on hand throughout the session, and also will be available at the end for a full Q&A session. Also today, you'll see the new data layers product, which will give you access to data such as planning history, contamination and flood extents, and HMR title boundaries, amongst many others, and allow you to overlay these over your maps. So we hope you find the session useful, and by the end of it, are confident in using Promap. But a key thing to remember is that we're always on hand to help with its use. So please feel free to contact us post-session should you ever require it. And our details to do this will be on screen at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Nick now, who'll take you through the practical introduction to Promap. So Nick, it's over to you.
Great stuff. Thanks, Paul, and welcome everybody to today's session. As Paul said, we're going to take you now through the system and give you sort of an overview of Promap and what it's capable of. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm going to be accessing it via Google Chrome. As Paul mentioned, the new version of Promap is designed to work on all the major operating systems now, all the major browsers. I'm going to use Google Chrome. Personally, I just tend to find Google Chrome runs a little bit quicker for me, so that's the one I'm going to utilize for today. When you go into Chrome and enter Promap into the search bar, it will appear as one of the top options. When you select it, you'll always be initially taken through to the main launch screen. You can launch the application in the top right-hand corner. If, however, you want to get into our training center and look at the range of training materials we've got available, course companions, user guides, training videos, shortcut sheets, all of those are available from there as well. They're also available to you once you've got the application open. To launch the application, as I say, click on the icon and it will initially take you through to this screen here. Just enter your username and password, and once you've clicked login, at that point, it will take you straight into the application and also straight into the mapping as well. Now, initially, when you go in, you'll always start on this map player on the right-hand side, the open map player. That map player, along with all of the map players from aerial downwards in that list, are free to view, free to roam around on. So when you're trying to locate your site or look at information about the area around your site, those are the best map players to use for that. The only map player within the system, as it's always traditionally been the case, that has any viewing or roaming charges attached to it, is the top player there, the OS Master Map Topography layer. You pay a viewing charge to go in and look at a brand new site on that layer. It's also the only one that's got as I say, roaming limits, and once you go beyond that roaming limit, there is a roaming charge attached to that as well. What I would say, however, about both the viewing and roaming charges is they've both been significantly reduced recently on the system. Alongside that, in terms of roaming limits, what we've also done at the same time is dramatically increase the amount of free roaming that you get on that layer, and that's gone from 1 kilometre squared up to 5.5 kilometres squared, so significantly more than previously. Now, to begin with, we're going to navigate you through the main entry screen, show you where everything's located, which may answer a number of questions that you have about the system. So I'm going to start on the top taskbar on the left-hand side. In there, you can enter your search information. You can search by all the traditional methods, address, tile, grid reference, and you've also got the option now to search by land registry title number as well. And the land registry title information, which is a relatively new addition to Promap, is available in a number of different forms as you work through the system, and we're going to show you all of those today. When you search by the address, tile or grid reference, one of those three options, it always initially opens up your map on that open map player on the right-hand side, the free to view, free to roam one. The land registry title search is different because when you search based on that, it will take you straight into that top layer, so the only one that you have to pay for. But what it will also immediately do is apply your title outline onto the map for you. So it'll be there immediately for you to start working on. In terms of the land registry information, the only other caveat with regards to that is in terms of coverage. At the moment, the land registry information is only available for England and Wales. We are hoping to add some data along this line for Scotland at a later date, but it's not there at this stage. So as I say, if you're searching in England and Wales, you can use that option. To the right of the search box, obviously I will do a practical demonstration as we go through today's session. To the right of that, you've then got the upload option. Really designed for the users of the system that are exporting data output into CAD or GIS systems. This allows you to bring in shape files from those systems directly into Promap. We'll then bring up the mapping for the relevant area, the polygon that you've defined for that particular area, and then allow you to just select your data sets from there. So it can speed up the ordering process. So you've got that upload option there. To the right of that, that's where you can access your previously saved maps within the system. Now, when you go into here, you've got three different search methods available to you. Down the left-hand side, it will show you 10 most recently accessed maps. The central section shows you all the various folders that you got on the system and the maps saved into those folders. And in the top left-hand corner, you've also got a keyword search facility that you can use as well. Now, with regards to your searches, one thing to mention here is this date filter in the bottom left-hand corner, which again, relatively new addition to the system. We were getting a lot of feedback from clients complaining it was taking longer and longer to search through their archive of saved maps to find their more recent, more current projects. So a date filter has been applied in here. And initially, when you search on the system, it will only show you the maps that have been saved into the system in the last 2 years. So those more recent, more current ones. Should you want to go back further than that, the filters here will allow you to go back as far as you like on the system. But as I say, just be aware, initially when you're searching, it's only the last 2 years that are showing. In that central section, as I say, where it's giving me all the various folders and the maps contained within those folders, I can just select my maps from there and then open them accordingly. Now, when you select your map, first it will give you information about the map on the right-hand side, the folder name, the map name, reference, the description of that particular map. Possibly most importantly, just underneath that, any order information. As you might be aware of in this new version of Promap, the way that it handles maps that you've paid for previously is slightly different. It saves them onto the system as orders, and you access them via a separate order history section. And this orders area here will tell you if there's any orders, so you know to go through to that area of the system, access them, and possibly avoid viewing charges, the replication of printing charges within the system. And I will be showing that order details section as we go through. I can also perform the maintenance of my maps in this section as well. Far easier to do that administration in this version of Promap. For example, if I want to update a map name within the system, I just find my map, select it, then into the map name on the right-hand side, I just enter in the additional information that I want to add, click save. What it will then do is just save the map onto the system for me, and it immediately updates that new saved map. What I can also do here is move maps between folders if I want to. So if I'm tidying up my system and I want to move a map out of my base map section into my completed maps, I can just hover over it, hold down the left click button, drag that map to where I want it, and it will then drop it into that area for me. So as I say, far easier to do the maintenance on your maps within the system as well. Now, obviously, one of the prerequisites of searching through your saved maps, you have to be able to save them in the first place. The save icon is immediately to the right-hand side, and I will be demonstrating that process a couple of times as we go through today. As we move across the top taskbar, our two help sections. The little question mark that you've got there will link you through to the training pages, which I mentioned earlier, a high-level tutorial, and we'll give you the telephone number and email address for our customer services team if you need assistance from them. But what we've also added to the system very recently is a web chat option. So if you want to set up a web chat with customer service to go through any potential queries you might have, that option is also available to you now. To the right of that, notifications, tying in with the export and report ordering elements of Promap. There's a couple of those that can take up to an hour to come through. So rather than you sitting there looking at loading screens, it enables you to go off and do other bits and pieces on the system. When the export report is ready, a notification will appear there for you. So you know just to go in and download it. The little shopping basket icon to the right of that probably needs no introduction, where the majority of us have been doing most of our shopping online over the last 18 months. And Promap works very much the same way as your Amazon Prime, Tesco, online Ocado, those sorts of online ordering systems. You just drop the information that you want to order into the shopping basket and check out at the end when you're ready. So a tried and tested process. To the right of that, we then come to the account section, which is an extremely important area as far as this version of Promap is concerned. That's because you'll find under here the order history option. Now, when you order anything from Promap, it automatically takes you to order history so you can download it. But as we said before, if you want to re-access your orders to potentially reuse them, possibly, as we said, avoiding viewing charges, print charges again, you can access them via account and order history. When you click on there, that takes you into that section. In the central area, that's where you'll find all the various orders that you placed on the system, giving you the date and time of the order, the products, the types, the references, the status of your order. To the right-hand side of that, under order details, it will give you a thumbnail overview showing you the position of the print frame in relation to the map, the order number, the scale, paper size, orientation, and format that we use for that map. Very useful for me if I'm considering reusing this map going forward. It will also tell me when that map's in license till, and just like all the previous versions of Promap, when you pay to print in this version, you're paying for a 12-month copyright license on that map. So you can reuse it for 12 months after without incurring that charge again. As I say, in terms of re-accessing your maps to reuse them, initially when you order your map, you'll get a download tab appearing on the right-hand side. But once you've initially downloaded it, if you want to reuse it, you can either reprint it or edit your print from here. Just go in, change your customization, whatever you require. To search through the orders, down the left-hand side, you've got various filters there: keyword, order type, date range, license status. You can look purely at your orders or look at your organization as a whole. So that's our order history section. And I will come back to that again a couple of times as we go through today. The other useful option that you'll find under account, under the admin section, a couple of areas: my settings. So if you want to change the appearance of your site marker as it appears on the map, you can do that from there, or remove it completely from all of your searches going forward. There is a toggle option actually available on the bottom taskbar if you just want to toggle it on and off on the map that you've currently got displayed. Also under the admin section, expenditure, which will allow you to track your spend on the system. And if you're looking to allocate cost to a particular job or client, you don't want to wait for the end of the month for the invoice to come through. This provides you with a range of reports that you can run on a number of different date ranges. So you can obtain the information that you need, bill it accordingly. So that's our top taskbar. If we move to the bottom of the screen, there it'll tell us which map player we've currently got open. And then to the right of that will give us the location information for wherever our cursor is positioned on screen. The eastern and northern coordinates, OS tile number, and national grid reference from that point. So if I need to obtain that from the map or pinpoint something onto the map using that information, I can do so and accurately. Moving across the bottom taskbar, planning links is the next icon I come to. That ties into those viewable layers Paul mentioned earlier, and I'll be going through those in a bit more depth later. To the right of that, site information. Looks like a little arrow with a question mark underneath. Very useful if you're not 100% sure that you've got the right site on screen, or you literally just want to get address information for a point on the map. Just click on site information, click on the property that you're interested in. It will immediately then confirm the eastern and northern coordinates and the full postal address for that particular site. So I can get that information very, very quickly. To the right of that, the toggle option I mentioned earlier for your site marker. And to the right of that again, that's where you'll find your zoom options. Although most people, if I'm honest, just tend to use the mouse wheel at this stage. On the left-hand side of the screen, that's where you've got your 3 different journeys through the system. Export, taking data out to put it into CAD or GIS systems. Print, the one I'm going to start with for today. So that's opening your maps up, putting customization on them, and then printing them as PDFs or JPEGs from the system. Finally, our reports, where you can order from a range of different reports covering environmental, utilities, planning information, development site assessment reports. There's a whole range in there as well. And as I say, we'll be touching on all of those. Just a little word of caution with regards to those three tabs on the left-hand side. They have caught a few people out when using the system. And the reason for that, when you initially log into Promap, for no other reason than alphabetically it's top of the list, it will automatically select the Export tab on the left-hand side. Now, the reason that this has caught a few people out is the Draw and Measure tools, which are accessed via the Draw tab on the right-hand side of the screen. These tools are now directly linked to the task that you have selected on the left-hand side. And the only time that you will see the full range of Draw and Measure tools is when the Print tab is selected, simply because that's the only time that you will need that full range. People who are exporting or ordering reports from the system aren't worried about adding text boxes, the colors of shapes, properties, things like that. All they want to do is put an outline around the area that they're interested in and obtain the data or the report for that. So it removes the unnecessary tools. And we have had a few people who've logged into the system, haven't realized the Export tab is selected, and then wondered why some of their Draw and Measure tools weren't there. That's normally the reason. What I would also say with regards to that, to make life a little bit easier, we have added in this default tab. So if print is going to be the job that you're doing most often, next time you log into Promap, select the Print tab, make it your default tab, and it will automatically open to that every time you log into Promap afterwards. On the right-hand side of the screen, as we've already seen, that's where our map layers are located, the Draw and Measure tools, and also those viewable layers that I mentioned a little bit earlier are accessible from here as well. So that's the main entry screen. Let's now go in and do a basic search on the system. So I'm going to use the most common search method. I'm going to search based on a postcode at this particular stage. I enter the postcode, it immediately gives me all the addresses that fit that criteria, numerically and alphabetically, to make the search easier. And if I want to, I could use Promap as a free address search, postcode finder. It's not going to restrict me to 10 or 12 a day as other certain well-known websites do, or charge me for any over and above that. I can use it as often as I like to get the address information that I need. Now I'm going to use the top property there, number 1 Glen Road, for today. Now, as soon as I select that, 3 things will happen. Firstly, it will open up the map of my site on the Open Map layer on the right-hand side, that free to view, free to roam layer. What it will also automatically do is look to see whether anybody within my organization, so it's not just looking at my saved maps, but anybody within my organization has saved a map for this area previously in this version of Promap, or has ordered anything for this site previously in this version. If they have, it will tell you how many orders and how many saved maps there are, and the little eye icon will then allow you to shortcut through to that area, potentially reuse your save map, possibly avoiding viewing charges, potentially reuse your order, possibly avoiding those printing charges. So always keep an eye out for those when you're searching for a new site. For today, I want to deal with this as a brand new one. So starting me on the Open Map, just to mention a couple of the other layers which could be useful. The bottom 2 in the list, 250,000 mini scale. These 2 are useful because they have a different pricing structure to the rest. And that really comes into play when you're looking at very high level information, areas around sites, things like that. On this layer, it will cost you £2.51 to print, regardless of the area that you print. So if I print that map view as it is now on an A4 sheet of paper, £2.51. If, however, I did a full map of the region on an A0 size sheet of paper, still £2.51. No difference in that price. So when I'm trying to show where my property sits in relation to major commuting routes, towns, cities, villages nearby, ideal for that type of work. Particularly when you consider that the vast majority of the Draw and Measure tools that we've mentioned are designed to work across all layers. So if I want to measure distances, outline areas, add text boxes, symbols, shapes, I've got the ability to do so. So those are our bottom 2 layers, the 250,000 mini scale. Now, as you move up through the layers, you're going to get more and more information each time. The 1 to 25,000, or Ordnance Survey Land Ranger layer, as it's also known, very often used within the system and ideal for gathering information about the area around your site. When I go into here, as I say, a lot of information displayed, and this particular map player is very often used for things like outdoor activity packs, environmental reports, within leisure and tourism information for that reason. This map, as an example, is showing me nature reserves, golf courses, museums, heritage sites, marinas. But it's also showing me, from an infrastructure point of view, position of schools, hospitals, train stations, information like that as well. So very useful, as I say, for building up a picture of the site. And one of the tools that's very often used in conjunction with this layer is the line tool, because that will allow me to very quickly get measurements from my site to any of those points. I simply click on line, click on my property, drag my cursor to the point in question, and in the properties box on the right hand side, it will immediately show me that distance. Initially, it'll do it as a direct line distance, but if I want to click around the map, perhaps find the driving distance to this particular school, I can use the line tool in that way as well to get the measurement information that I need. So, as I say, that's our 1 to 25,000 layer. Now, the next layer, we've already seen the open map layer. This is the one it always initially opens to. And if I'm completely honest, I don't tend to use it for too much more than that. If I'm going to use a street level layer, I tend to use the one above it in the list, the vector map local, purely down to the fact it gives me a bit more information. That being said, it's worth being aware that a number of bits of functionality within the Promap system become available from this point on. The site information button that we mentioned a little bit earlier is available from this point onwards. Under the Draw and Measure tools, our latest Draw and Measure tool, the Land Registry Fill tool, which will allow you to apply a land registry title in a single click, is available from this map player onwards. So I can utilize that onto the mapping. Also, those viewable layers that I mentioned a little bit earlier are available to me from this point onwards. So as I say, with those tools, that additional viewable layer information, I don't have to be in the master map player to use them. Now, as you move up through the layers, as I say, we get more information. The street level layer, as I say, that I tend to use is vector map local because it gives me a little bit more defined building outlines, fences, field boundaries, pathways, cutting information, all of that displayed on here. Above that, the last of our free to view, free to roam layers is our aerial layer. Slightly different because effectively what we've got here, one large aerial photograph covering the whole of the country. Supplied by a company called Get Mapping, the same supplier that Google use. So you'll see the same images on here as you do on the Google site. From there, we differ from Google in a number of ways. The most important of these in terms of licensing. A lot of people aren't aware that Google Earth, Google Street View, that range of products is not licensed for any sort of commercial purpose whatsoever, unless you've paid the additional license to Google to use it for that. When you print the aerials from Promap, they automatically come with that licensing. So if you want to put them up on websites in property particulars, you are fully covered to do so. The Draw and Measure tool is also designed to work on this layer in the same way as the map players that we've looked at so far. And that can be useful because the aerial layer will show bits of information even the master map player might not show well. Positions of trees, road markings, the exact usage of a piece of land. Far clearer very often from the aerial than they are from the mapping. So those are our free to view, free to roam layers. In now to our last layer, the master map topography. Now, as I mentioned before, this is the map player. When you go in to look at a new site for the first time, you'll incur a viewing charge. But Promap's very transparent. It will tell you what the charge is, tell you what it relates to, and it will require you entering your references before you proceed any further. Just enter those in, accept them, and that will take you into the map player. Now, this map player is also different from the others in that it will give you a choice of styles that you can apply. The default is color, as we've got here, very often used for property particulars, presentations, because it's got plenty of color to it already. If I was doing any planning application or land registry work, I'd use the black and white option. My outlines will show up far more clearly. A lot of local authorities will even insist on it. So as I say, I've got that option as well. The third option, however, hybrid, actually allows me to combine two layers. I mentioned before that the aerial layer gives you certain information that even the master map doesn't show well. Hybrid will allow you to overlay one on top of the other. So I get a combined image. And as I say, I can then utilize that extra information. Now, underneath where you select your map style, you can also then control the dominance of the map or the aerial data using the little slider bar there and mark it on. So I've got that option as well. Now, the only downside with hybrid comes if you try and print directly from it. Because at this stage you're using both a map and an aerial photo, it would charge me for both elements, so I would end up paying more. So the way we advise you to use it is put the two together as I've done here. Use the amalgamated image to drop on the information you want to display. Let's say for the sake of argument, I want to indicate this roundabout here onto my mapping. I can draw it in, then before I print, if I revert back to either the black and white or the color, I can retain the information I've added, but because I'm no longer using the aerial, I don't pay for that element as well. So I get the benefit of both, but without incurring the cost. And that's arguably the first of the viewable layers on the system. I'm going to go in and look at the others now as well. But that's arguably the first of the viewable layers that you can overlay onto the mapping data. Now, at this point, we've paid a viewing charge to go into this particular layer. We would recommend on a regular basis, but certainly when you've incurred any sort of cost on the system, save your map. To save it, click on the save icon, select the folder that you want to save your map into, or create a new folder if you wish. Then on the right-hand side, give it a map name, a reference, and into description, any other information that you might want to use to locate this map at a later date. Once you've done that, you just save the map. That's now saved on the system till I decide to remove it. And whenever I open that map up going forwards from the Open Save Map section, it will automatically update to give me the latest OS information available. So I'll always be looking at the most current mapping for my site. Now, before we get into the journeys on the left-hand side, we mentioned a couple of times the viewable layers that are available to you on the system. Now, there are 9 available to you, and these will allow you to overlay the data directly onto the mapping in Promap and view it immediately. Now, the top 3 layers are permanently free to everybody who uses the system. The 6 below that are available on a monthly subscription model, £35 per user, which then give you unlimited access to that data. In terms of the data that they provide, for land use designations, recent and older plans for the site, these are broken down into subcategories to help you search even further. So as an example, if I was interested in putting in a housing development in this area, I could see what housing plans the local authority have. It will immediately highlight where those plans apply on my mapping. And if I click on any of the search results, and this applies to all of the viewable layers and the search results they give, I'll get more information about it. Classification, policy, source map, the authority involved. I've got all of that for my land use designations. Commercial titles and personal titles, they're split separately on the system because under the Data Protection Act, we can't show as much information for the personal as we do for the commercial. And in terms of applying them, they're very, very similar. Select the relevant category, select whether you want freehold, leasehold, other is any land registry title currently awaiting classification for whatever reason. As soon as you select those, it will highlight the area that the title refers to. And if you click in the highlighted area, for the commercial titles, it will give you the title number, type, the owner's name and address, and our own contact information. Whilst for the personal titles, very similar, it will show you the area that the title refers to. And again, if you click inside it, it will give you more information about it. The only difference here is that it won't show you the owner information. That's the information that we can't yet display on here. We are hoping to do that at a later date. That being said, I have got the title number, so if I could go to Land Registry armed with that and get the information that I need from there. Now, the last of the free viewable layers at the top there, flooding, actually gives you 2 options. Firstly, you can see if there's any risk of flooding to your site from flood zones 2 and 3. And it will overlay those directly onto the map and you can see where they sit in relation to your property. The other option you've got as far as flooding is concerned is to apply surface water flood information. So you can see if your property sits near any areas of high, moderate or low risk surface water flood. Surface water flooding being responsible for more than 80% of insurance claims over the last decade or so. Now, the other thing about the viewable layers is if you've got them displayed on the map when you go to print, they'll be retained on your print as well. We've even added a legend tool under the print options on the left-hand side. So if you are intending to incorporate the data and you want to put on a map key, defining exactly what the data is showing, you can click on legend on the left-hand side. It will drop that legend in and allow you to reposition it where you want it on the map. So those are our 3 free viewable layers on the right-hand side. The 6 below that are the ones that come under the subscription. But once you've paid the subscription, as I say, you've got limited access to those. First of them is planning, residential and non-residential applications for the area. Again, broken down into subcategories. Search results, smaller applications will appear as small icons. Larger applications will actually show you the area that the application refers to. And again, just like the other sections, when you click on a search result, it gives you more information about it. Your planning applications, a lot more. I get the planning application ID number, submission date, summary, decision, the address of the property, site area, a description of the work being undertaken. At the bottom, the application ID number is repeated again, but this is actually a link through to the local authority website. So if I want to view that application in full, I can do so. So all the constraints related documents accessible to me there. So that's via our planning applications. Now also, because the planning applications is quite a good example for this, the download option that you've got there. For the majority of layers, the only one that this doesn't apply to is OS Master Map Highway. What you've also got the ability to do is not just display them on the map, but if you want to retain this data on an Excel spreadsheet, just select the categories that you want, click download. What it will then do is bring up a download bar at the bottom of the screen, and your spreadsheet with all the information that you want is on the left-hand side. In the case of my planning applications, all the application data, including those links, if I wanted to use them. So that's the download option. Personal titles under the viewable layers we've already looked at. Registered leases underneath that. Again, this, along with property sold prices below it, also supplied by Land Registry as well. I can look at the registered leases for the area, see exactly where they sit. Again, I've got the outlines for them, and it will give me the title information and the information about the lease, date of the lease, term start date, duration, intended end date, price paid, registered and associated property descriptions, all of that sort of information retained there for me. As I mentioned, property sold prices is the other one that Land Registry provide. Currently just for residential properties. We are hoping to add commercial property shortly. Again, allows me to see that information for my property. Terrace properties, as an example, if I want to see the prices of those in the vicinity of my site, I can apply them on, get the various prices, and again, more information about them. The sale price, price per square foot, which is that sale price, divided by the square footage that was quoted in the EPC register that was relevant on the date of sale. It's accurate for the property as it was at that particular moment in time. The address of the property, the tenure information is also included. So that's from our Land Registry sources. Underneath that, constraints information, where I can overlay things like ancient woodland, greenbelt listed buildings, sites of special scientific interest, all of those as well, and see exactly where they sit in relation to my site. Finally, OS Master Map Highway. So if I want to look and see where the main A roads, the classified roads, unclassified are, I can select the road types, apply them onto the mapping, and then click on them to get more information about them again. Maintenance responsibility, street type, form of way, road name, all of that's in there. So those are our viewable layers. And as I say, very useful for gaining information about my site, but they can also be useful in customization as well, where I can retain the information on my print. And mentioning print, let's now move on to that aspect. So I've opened this map up for this particular site. I want to customize it and then order a PDF or a JPEG for it. Now, when you select print from the left-hand side, it immediately applies your print frame for two reasons. Firstly, as you're adding information using the draw and measure tools, firstly, you know it's going to appear in your print area. And secondly, it allows us to give you immediately the printing cost on the left-hand side. So you get all of that information up front. The print options are also dynamic. So as you make any changes to those, it will update the price there accordingly. So you immediately know if there is going to be a price change. As far as my frame is concerned, here I've got the option to alter the scale, paper size, the orientation of the page, the print output, whether I want to take it as a PDF, certainly the one I would want if I was looking to get my map to scale. When you create a map from Promap, save it onto your system as a PDF, it is to scale. So as long as you send it through to a printer that's set to its standard settings, it will print off to scale so you can measure off it. I've also got the option for images. Now, the downside with the images, as far as scale goes, is what most people tend to do is save the JPEG or PNG onto their system and then insert that image into Word documents, brochure software, things like that. The downside there is those applications immediately resize the image to fit the page, so we can't guarantee the scale on those. If you need both and you have a paper map copy license with the Ordnance Survey, you can order them both at the same time here. There's that option as well. I'm just going to use the PDF for today. Before I lock my frame in position, I can move the map beneath the frame just to ensure I'm picking up all the areas that I want to customize, and then I lock the frame on the left-hand side. And should I need to unlock the frame and change any of these settings, the position of the frame, I can do that right up to the point that I've printed my map. Now, the customization tools themselves. We'll show you sort of the main headlines in that draw and measure area. First thing I'm going to do is remove my site marker. It's getting in the way a little bit here. Now, there's a number of outlining tools available to you within the system, and depending on the scenario, depends which one will probably be most effective. If you've got a single shape on the map, building, back garden, pavement, roadway, field, probably the quickest way of putting an outline to it is to use the fill tool. The fill tool and snap to point under the draw and measure tools, the only two that are restricted purely to this layer. But on this layer, if I want to very quickly get a measurement for a property, just a building, I can click on fill, click inside the shape, it will immediately apply an outline to it. And if I just turn off the fill tool and click back within that area, I immediately get a properties box on the right hand side, giving me the area, the perimeter, and the options for changing the appearance of my shape, altering the widths of the outlines, adding fills if I want to, even controlling the transparency of the fill if I want to be able to see information through that fill. So one click, use the fill tool on my shape. As I say, I've been able to customize it and add that information on. And as I say, I've got my area and perimeter there, and I could add a label onto the map, displaying that information as well. If you don't want it in meters squared, you've also got the option just above that to choose the measurement unit that you want to apply for this site. Now, at this stage, I'll introduce, because we've started to add information to the mapping, probably the most requested tool on the Promap system in the last 20 years or so. And that, on the right-hand side, the middle row of draw and measure tools is the undo tool. One area where it's very often required, you've spent time outlining your site, you go to move your map, and you accidentally drag your shape. Happened to all of us at one stage or another. If you want to move your map back into position, on this version of Promap, very, very simple. You just click on the undo tool. On older versions, that particular situation actually meant redrawing the shape onto the map. But as I say, you've got the undo button to make life easier here. Also alongside that, redo. So if you decide actually you preferred the shape where it was before, redo will allow you to put it back again. Now, we've outlined this shape using the fill tool. Downside of the fill tool is it does only fill one shape at a time. And what if I want more than one? What if I want to include just the back garden for today? Well, to work alongside that, we've also added in a merge tool that will allow you to merge together any number of adjacent filled shapes. So for my example here, let's say I want to include the back garden as well and get a total plot area. I put a fill on the building, I just put a fill on the back garden as well. As soon as those two fills are applied, the merge option has now become active. Just select that, select the two shapes that I want to merge together, merges them together as one, and that's what I'm now getting the measurements for on the right-hand side. And again, I've got exactly the same customizations options as I had previously, so I can add my color schemes, do exactly the same in there. So that's our merge tool. Alongside the fill tool, we've also got, I mentioned it earlier, our newest draw and measure tool, title fill. And this will allow you not just to apply a shape outline on there, but the title outline. And even if your property has more than one piece of land tied to one particular title number, the piece of land that you've clicked on, it will outline in red. The other pieces of land that might be connected to it, it will immediately outline in blue. It will do all of them in one click. And it's useful from the point of view of gathering information as well as customization. Once you put the outline on there, do exactly the same as you did with the fill tool before. You can click back inside the shape. You can alter its appearance, add those color schemes in, as we said before. You could even, if you put a fill on the property next door, use the merge tool to merge those two titles and get a total area for the two combined. So the two fill options in a number of situations will speed up your outlining process. Alongside those, sort of the traditional outlining tools within Promap, snap to point and then using the line or the shape tool to measure boundary lengths or areas. Snap to point, when you click on it, basically turns your outlining process into a glorified dot to dot. Then for boundary lengths, just use the line tool to join the dots up to get the boundary measurement that you require. As you go down the boundary, click on each point, it will automatically lock to the point for you. And to finish your line, just double left click. And then again, click back on the line to access the properties box for it. Again, allowing you to change the appearance of your boundary line, add those labels with the measurements in that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I've got those options as well. If I'm outlining areas, similar sort of process, just instead of the line tool, the shape tool. Click on there, click around the outside of your shape on each point as you go. Should you make a mistake when outlining, we've already mentioned the undo button, which will help me. There's also a keyboard shortcut. Control Z on the keyboard will act as an undo option as well when you're outlining, so you can undo your clicks that way. If you only discover that you made a mistake once you finish your shape, even then, you haven't got to delete everything and start again. Just select the shape, then either press Control and Return on the keyboard to reopen it, then allowing you to use Control Z to make whatever alterations you need, or use the Add Remove Point tool, which will allow you to add points to your outline by clicking on them. And then if you hover over that point and hold down the left click button, you can drag that point to where you need it. Or if I want to move points, existing points, I can just hover over those, select them, and move them accordingly. To take points out, hover over them, left click once you've clicked on the Add Remove Point tool, and then single left click to remove the points as well. Should you need to join up multiple dots around the outside of a shape, click on your first point, hold down the space bar, click on a point further along the line. That will automatically join up a number of dots for you, and that can speed up the outlining process as well. Alongside that, in terms of adding your own information onto the mapping, everything that I've looked at so far there is using the existing Ordnance Survey outlines. But using the other tools under Draw and Measure, I can add rectangles onto my shape, circles, text boxes, using the A key there, drop those in, and then make my amendments to them as I want to from there. I've even got a Promap shapes library that's got a number of predefined shapes that I can drop in if I want to. But there you've got predefined plot sizes, house footprints, garage footprints, T markers, so a whole range of options. And to apply them, simply click on them. And for all of these ones that we've added, once you've added them to the mapping, you can then, by clicking on them, alter them as you need to from there. I can alter my arrow that I've added in there for my rectangle. If I want that to a specific size, select it. I've got height and width options there that will then allow me to set it to the exact size that I require. For my circle, I can click on there, set the radius that I want for that particular circle. So as I say, range of options as far as adding shapes goes. If, however, you want to add a shape which doesn't fit one of those basic options, when you're using the shape tool or the line tool, it's also worth being aware that you can set lengths of lines by pressing L on the keyboard, and angles for your lines by pressing A on the keyboard. So if you need to draw something even more detailed than that, again, you've got the option to do so. So those are our draw and measure tools on the system, and a whistle-stop tour through those. Now, let's say I've done everything I want to on this particular map. I now want to take it out of the system. I could add it straight into the shopping basket. If, however, I want to add headers, footers, company logos, I use the print preview option instead. Now, when I select print preview, as the name suggests, it will give me a preview of that print on the left-hand side. Firstly, show me what Promap's going to add. I'll always get a north point in the top left-hand corner, as well as the scale and paper size in the bottom left-hand corner. And in the bottom left-hand corner of the map on the master map player, if I'm printing from there, I will get a scale bar as well. On the right-hand side, that's where I can upload my company logo into the logos library here, where it will stay until I decide to remove it. And I can add that very quickly, simply by deciding what position I want to put it in and the logo I want to add. Headers and footers, if I want to add those in, just type in the relevant text into those sections. I can update the size of the text, font, its positional on that top header bar if I want to. And I've even got the ability, if I always want to use the same header on there, perhaps the office address, or I want to put some disclaimer text on there, I always want the logo in the same position. I've even got the ability when I'm using these to save templates of them, just meaning that if I need a map again that requires a logo in a particular position, a footer in another position, rather than have to add them all on again, I can just select a previous template and apply it directly onto my map. So a number of tools within the system around the print journey to speed the process up. From here, I just add that particular print into my shopping basket. Now, I've already ordered my print, but let's have a look at the other two journeys as well briefly. Export. So this is taking data out to put it into CAD and GIS systems. Now, the thing about both export and reports, it's a significantly easier order journey, mainly down to the fact that you don't have to do as much customization. All you're really required to do here is define the area that you want your data for using the draw and measure tools, and then select the relevant data sets or reports on the left-hand side. The draw and measure options, same as we were looking at with our draw and measure tools earlier, certainly in how they function. As I mentioned much earlier in the session, it will only show you the tools relevant to this particular task. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle on here today to define the area that I want my data for. And as soon as I drop that on there, it will immediately drop in my pricing on the left-hand side. And from here, as I say, I'm just selecting the data sets that I want. In terms of those data sets, probably the most commonly taken one is the top one in the list on the left, the OS master map topography layer, the one normally taken by architects, put into CAD, where they'll then work on their drawings in there and alter them accordingly. Within the Promap system, you've got the ability then, if you wish, to get, as a special offer, Terrain 5 DTM or Terrain 5 contour data as a bundle option with that master map player, and that will give you a significant reduction on the cost of the height data that's involved. Height data can be purchased individually from the height data section a little bit further down if it's required. Alongside that, under export, as well as all the mapping layers that we saw earlier on the right hand side, you can get the OS master map player with building height attribute data. That's a beta data set that the Ordnance Survey are working with at the moment, so you can see your building heights on there. And also you've got the option with the vector map local layer to get that as a vector data set as well. Similar format to the master map topography layer. Just means with that vector layer, you can put it into CAD, break it down into its component layers as you do with the master map topography layer, and work on those layers individually. So another option there under current mapping. In addition to the mapping, 3D models. So you've got 3D options there available from Z Mapping. They have a large area of the country already mapped, but if you're in an area that isn't mapped, as I've got here, they've even got a bespoke service. So they will go away, obtain the relevant aerial photos and create the height data for you. For certain areas of the country, we've also got our own OS Detail 3D data bundle, which combines the master map data, the topography data, and also that building height attribute data as well. And allows you, where available, to create a 3D data bundle from there. Not as accurate as the Z mapping, I will say, but as I say, good for presentations, things at that time. Height data I mentioned earlier, you can order that from that section there, and as well as those two data sets that are available under the bundle option, there's a number of other height data sets provided by the Environment Agency as well that you can also access at a range of different collection intervals. And also down at the bottom, aerial photography. So if I want to obtain an aerial photo at a different resolution to the aerial layer within the system, resolution for that layer incidentally 1 to 25 centimeters, but if I want an aerial photo at 1 to 12.5 centimeters or higher, 50 centimeters a meter, I've got those options as well. For the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm just going to take the master map at the top just to show the order process. Now, alongside the exports and prints, we've also mentioned you've got the reports options. Now, in the follow-up email that I'll send after today's event, I'll attach links through to samples of the various reports that are available to you. But just to give you an overview of them, Land Search is our development site assessment report. Brings together a number of very useful data sets for your particular site. And when you go into there, you'll find that it combines for you in one place land use designation data, planning data, ownership information, development constraints, local information, including things like positions of surgeries, dentists, schools in the area. It will even give you the Ofsted result and the date of the last inspection for the school. And combine with that a number of bits of local market analysis, employment types, housing types, home ownership, local authority tax bands, all incorporated in there as well. And the Land Search report will provide you not only with a PDF that we saw there, but also a viewer so that if you want to go and interrogate that in more detail, you'll have the ability to do it. It's just the planning information that you need. Plan Search Plus underneath that might be the better one. That'll bring together residential, non-residential applications, the land use designation data, and again, the amenities information. the nearest bus stops, post offices, cash machines, all of that sort of information, again, incorporated in one area. If it's utilities data that you want, our utilities report will return information from all the utility suppliers for the area that you've defined. So you're not picking specific ones, it will return it all. So all the mainline sewage, electric, gas, water will be included, along with any fiber optic cabling, anything of that type. You choose the speed at which that information is returned to you. You can have it after 5, 10 or 20 working days. And you've even got the ability in the system, if you want, to have that utilities data provided in a CAD format. So if you are going to be passing it over to an architect for them to incorporate into their CAD drawings, as I say, that can be provided as well. So you've got that option also. Beneath that, historic maps. Through the Promap system, you've got access to the largest database in existence of OS historic maps. Again, define the area, click on go, and it will then display for you all of the maps that we have for that particular site. Display them based on the date they were published, give you the scale of the map, and allow you to preview it before you purchase it. You can purchase them individually, or you can purchase multiple maps, and it will, when you download them, it will download them as a zip file with all of the maps contained therein. The preview allows me to see exactly how much coverage we've got for that particular area. So I can see how much content is going to be there. Beneath historic maps, we then come to our 2 environmental reports. EnviroScreen, probably the most well-known, very often requested by banks if they're looking at a lending assessment for a site. More geared towards a domestic conveyance, I will say. The reports will work up to 2 hectares in size and a 100-metre radius around it. And they will allow you to look at things like historical land use, landfill and mineral sites, if there's any statutory authorisations applying, contraventions, and will give information on the natural features of the site as well. They come, as I say, with a lending assessment included, a professional opinion on our site, on your site from our in-house environmental consultant, and also probably most importantly, and this applies to all of the data, the reports within the Promap system, comes with professional indemnity cover. So if you act on the data in that report, it's found to be wrong in any way, you are covered for that. For larger commercial sites, Site Check Assess may be the better option. This will include things like borehole data, site sensitivity mapping, geology data, all of that's incorporated into there. So those are our, as I say, 3 different paths through the system on the left-hand side. Let's say I've ordered everything I want to for today, and I now want to check out. So click on my shopping basket and view it to reach the checkout screen. On this screen, firstly, I just make sure that I've got my right format selected for my print. I select the format that I want for my export. Most people tend to take the DWG at this stage, so that's what I'll do for today. And then whether or not I want to include grid lines. Most CAD users will tend to use that because they'll use the grid lines in CAD to then help them with scaling, things of that type. Now, once I've made all those choices there and made sure the right projects and references are in there, I submit my order. Now, it won't immediately at this stage take me to my order history because it will prompt me one more time, just to be on the safe side, to save what I've done onto the system. And I can save them separately if I want to. So if I want to have my map and export saved separately on the system, I just update the map names. So there's my print saved. Now I'm saving my export separately. And once I've saved them both, that's where it now takes me into my order history. My 2 orders will appear at the top in that central section. The download tabs for both of them appearing on the right-hand side of the screen. So let's download my PDF here as my example. Click on the download tab, brings up the download bar at the bottom of the screen, and there on the left-hand side is my PDF. Just click on there, that will open up your map. So there's my map, and at this point I can download it to wherever I want to put it on my system, or if I want to print it off as a hard copy, I can do that from there. And as we mentioned earlier in the session, if you want to reuse a map that you paid to print, reuse a report and export, come into the order history section, select the relevant order, and then the options to reuse it will appear on the right-hand side. So my print here, I can reprint it, I can edit the print. If I want my export in a different format, I've got other download options that I can take it in as well from here. So as I say, if you want to reuse something that you've ordered into your order history and use the options there to do it. So we've taken you there through the Promap system. And at this point, I'll pass back over to Paul to deal with any questions that you may have with regards to the demonstration that we've given there. So Paul, back over to you.
All right, well, thanks for that, Nick. Well, I hope you found that useful today. Just wanted to point you in the direction of our future webinars where you can build on the knowledge you've learned today and see some more of the advanced tools, which I hope you get more from Promap when you're using it in your daily workflow. Dates and times are on screen now. Please remember to download the companion and the Promap profile document on the right-hand side of your screen today. They're takeaways for today to remind you of everything Nick's taken you through in the practical demonstration. And of course, we've got our contact details on screen. Should you ever have any queries with Promap, please do get in touch with us and we'll help solve them for you. If you do have any questions of anything you've seen, please feel free to use the question facility on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will stay online for a few moments to answer them for you. But just want to highlight some of the future webinars coming up. So next Friday, we'll be going more in depth to the Promap printing, showing some tips and tricks about using the customization tools that Nick showed you and how to produce some quality prints from that. And then the week after, we'll be going through the Promap report. So again, if you're looking for more CPD hours or just want to get a little bit more, know a little bit more about the Promap system, please do sign up for those. And I say, if you've enjoyed today and it's benefited, and you think some of your colleagues might benefit, on the 15th of October, we'll be repeating this session, the introduction to Promap. So please look out for that and do sign up for that. There don't appear to be any questions coming through at the moment. Myself and Nick will stay online for a few moments. If you want to ask any, please do use that question facility. It will come through to us. But if not, that's it for today. So thank you so much for your interest in Promap. We hope to see you again on one of the future webinars in the coming weeks. But if not, that's it for today. So have a great weekend. Stay safe. And thank you and goodbye.
Okay, no questions coming through. So as Paul said, just to add to that, thank you for attending today. I hope it's been useful. Hope to see you on some of the future webinars. But for today, thank you and goodbye.